Good evening. Welcome to Grace and Gavel. I am Buffy and I will be your host talking to you about a case called the West Memphis Three. I'm an attorney. I've been an attorney for 17 years, practicing in criminal law, so I understand a lot of the nuances that are involved and a lot of the dynamics that a lot of people don't see because they don't practice criminal law, right? So I have decided to start my second podcast. My first one is a women's lifestyle creator channel, and this one is a true crime. So today we're going to talk about the West Memphis Three, a cold case with shifting truths. May 5th, 1993, three 8-year-old boys ride out for an evening bike ride near Robin Hood Hills in West Memphis, Arkansas. By dawn the next day, their bodies are discovered hogtied, naked, mutilated in a creek. Enter three teenage misfits who become known as the West Memphis Three. I believe Eddie Vedder was involved in their case, like trying to advocate for them. What really happened that night? Who killed those boys, and why did the justice system follow such a twisted path? Welcome to Grace and Gavel. I'm Buffy, and today we dig into a case of ritual suspicion, wrongful conviction claims, and a justice system that still has questions to answer. Talking about ritual suspicion, I remember growing up in the 80s and there was a lot of satanic panic. And so a lot of things that people did not initially think that were huge issues, they started talking about satanic rituals and people being sacrificed and all this stuff going on. And I remember there was a case, I believe, in California where there was a whole daycare where people were arrested and taken to trial because they believed that they had harmed these children, which turned out to not be the case. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our deep dives into cold cases and hidden mysteries. Now, let's go. On the evening of May 5th, 1993, three 8-year-old boys from West Memphis, Arkansas, Michael Moore, Stevie Branch, and Christopher Byers, were reported missing while riding bikes near Robin Hood Hills. The next day, their bodies were found in a drainage ditch. They were naked, hogtied, and had sustained severe injuries. The brutality of the crime shocked this small community. It set off one of the most controversial and widely publicized murder investigations of its era. What we know, and the investigation begins. Investigators focus quickly on three local teenagers, Damian Eccles, age 18, Jason Baldwin, 16, and Jesse Miskelly Jr., 17. The prosecutors alleged that the murders were part of a satanic ritual, citing their appearance, musical preferences, and alleged witness statements. So again, I would say that as a prosecutor, to go quickly into the satanic panic defense was probably barking up the wrong tree. From my recollection, I believe these boys were actually kind of gothic boys. So they had the black hair. They listened to probably harder music than most at that time, especially in Arkansas would be my guess. And then also apparently alleged witnesses were making statements about them. In 1994, the three were convicted, Eccles and Baldwin for capital murder, Miskelly for first-degree murder and second-degree related charges. The key issues were that there were minimal evidence linking them to the crime scene. Much of the case rested on Miskelly's confession, which many later argued was coerced, and questionable witness testimony. Over the years, new DNA testing and advocacy raised doubts. In 2011, the West Memphis Three were released under an Alford plea. If you don't know, an Alford plea is where you say, I am not guilty. However, I know that they can potentially prove their case. And the result of an Alford plea then allows them to essentially maintain their innocence and then accept a plea or try to get lesser time. Because ultimately the Alford plea gave them the opportunity, almost the prosecution opportunity to kind of save face there and then be able to still get out of prison, right? What we don't know and unresolved questions regarding this case. What exactly happened that night? Did the boys maybe stumble upon a drug deal or some other thing? I remember watching on Unsolved Mysteries several years back. there were these boys who were actually killed on like a train track, and they think that I believe it was in Arkansas as well, where they were actually thinking that there was like drug runners coming through, and maybe the boys stumbled on things that they shouldn't have seen because they were actually ran over by a train, but it turned out that they hadn't tried to get out of the way or anything like that. So it's like, were they dead before that and then placed on the tracks? And this is very similar. This is like kind of in the same area from my recollection. The motive remains unclear. Was it ritualistic, opportunistic, or just a heinous crime of chance? The role of local panic. The early 90s, and I feel like the late 80s, saw a lot of satanic panic, like I mentioned earlier, in parts of America. The theory of cult ritual may have skewed the investigation. And who else can be involved? Several alternate suspects have been proposed over the years. In April 2024, the Arkansas Supreme Court ruled that new DNA can proceed, raising hope for fresh answers. And ultimately, we have to hope that that the DNA is not degraded, as well as they may end up using like the whole DNA genetics thing too to kind of figure that out. Despite the release of Eccles, Baldwin, and Miss Kelly, the case has not been definitively ruled solved. The true perpetrators remain unidentified in the eyes of many investigators and advocates. Legacy and current status. The case has had a lasting impact, raising questions about juvenile justice. And ultimately, juveniles have the right to have their parents present. And you have to be really careful given the fact that they're not adults. The kids that are under 18 are not adults. So they need to have someone there in their corner. And then also how bias can affect investigators. Because you think at the time, coming from probably a conservative Arkansas town, they're going to look at those people and say, okay, well, they're probably devil worshipers, I mean, that's like the first line of defense. And of course, if you think that these people are doing things that you're diametrically opposed to, of course, you're going to have a negative thought about who they are. I just think investigators need to do their job, not make any sort of rash judgments on who they think people are. Some cases never rest, and this one continues to challenge our faith in justice and the truth, and the idea that truth will always win out. Unfortunately, that's not always the truth. 3 boys, 1 ditch, a community shattered, and 3 young men whose lives were forever changed. The West Memphis Three case shows us that sometimes the most chilling part of a crime is what we'll never know for sure. Thanks for listening to Gavel and Grace. And if you found this episode compelling, subscribe, share with a friend who loves a deep dive, and tap into our social channels for bonus content. Until next time, stay curious and stay alert. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at recovering_perfectionist_mama. And I may even do a @ for the True Crime Podcast as well, or for behind the scenes clips and updates on future episodes. Thank you for tuning in to my second episode, and I appreciate it, and I hope that you will come and join us again soon. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Bye-bye.